my talk is going to be about stories and story structure, and about how what we don't say is often just as important as what we do say. We know that what we say in words when we talk to people is just a part of how we communicate with them. Our gestures, our silences, our eye contact, even how we dress, that also forms other narratives and sometimes counter-narratives to the main way that we talk to people through words. So I've been reflecting on how that knowledge can be applied to copywriting and also to social media and marketing. And one of the ways that I've been thinking about that is in relation to Joseph Campbell's story structure. So in his 1949 book, The Hero with 1,000 Faces, Joseph Campbell mapped the universal hero's journey in detail, using myths from many cultures and traditions to create this kind of narrative of a universal hero. And it formed part of his work on monomyths, and famously he used it to attempt to decode Finnegan's Wake by James Joyce, which is famously one of the most difficult pieces of writing in the 20th century, in fact, possibly in all eternity. So one of the most well-known name checks in relation to Joseph Campbell is George Lucas. And George Lucas actually drew on this hero's journey in order to devise and create Star Wars. And he kind of mapped onto the hero's journey everything that kind of happened in Star Wars. So you start out with Luke, who's your hero, and then there's the call to action, and then there's kind of denying that call to action to go into another world. And then there's obviously the mentor, Obi-Wan Kenobi, kind of draws him into this other world, and then lots and lots of kind of dramas and adventures and challenges and experiences follow on from that. And the idea of the hero's journey is that you go into this other world, you have all these experiences, and then you return home after the final conflict, changed. And in some way you're changed, and you bring that sense of change into your kind of new reality. That informs your new reality. And you can basically track most contemporary commercial fiction or narratives or films or everything in Disney, and most advertising onto this hero's journey. And that's the way that emotional connections can be meaningfully made in relation to the reader and the hero. And the reason why it works is because the structure offers up emotional touchstones that allow the reader to easily identify with the hero as he kind of fails, struggles, has battles, and so forth. So what I'd like to say really in relation to this is this kind of knowingly creating emotional connections through narrative is vital to successful communications, both on a professional level and also on a personal level. And we can kind of condense this even further to this kind of marketing maxim that probably a lot of you have already heard of, which is problem, agitate, solve. So it's that kind of problem at the outset, and then it's sort of agitated here as they go into kind of battles and the dark moments and the threat of not returning to normal reality, and then you solve it. And the way that we understand problem, agitate, solve in a kind of more marketing context is obviously that you want to communicate with your potential or prospective client. So you think about what it is that how they could benefit from your product, and then you say what will happen to them if they don't engage with your product or buy your product. And that what will happen to them if they don't engage with your product is something bad. And it's much more nuanced than that, as I'll show you in a minute. And if they do engage with your product, something good will happen. They'll get a positive experience from it. And so if we look at an example of sort of guardian soulmates, the advertising is geared up towards persuading people in an upbeat way to kind of engage with this dating agency. And so their current line is, meet someone worth meeting. So on the surface, that seems fairly reasonable. That's kind of a nice statement of intent. But if we look behind that, if we look at the subtext of that, the subtext of meet someone worth meeting is that you've been having loads of crap dates with crap people. And And that, if we look at that in terms of problem, agitate, solve, we've got the problem, which is you've been having crap dates with crap people, and then we agitate that problem, the subtext, we can take that further. If you don't sign up to Guardian Soulmates, you will continue to have crap dates with crap people, and you will lead a lonely life and potentially die alone, okay? So, you know, this is, obviously I'm exaggerating this, but this is the subtext and the problem taken to its nth degree. But if you sign up to Guardian Soulmates, you're going to be fine, okay? You're going to live happily ever after, as per this. So I'd like to explore this idea of subtext a little bit more by connecting the hero's progress to Jane Austen. Obviously, it's easy to relate Star Wars, the kind of the drama, the mythology, the heroes, and so forth to this. But what about the quieter novels of Jane Austen? So I'm just going to read this passage. This is from Emma, which was published exactly 300 years ago. He looked at her as if wanting to read her thoughts. She hardly knew what to say. It seemed like the forerunner of something absolutely serious, which she did not wish. Forcing herself to speak, therefore, in the hope of putting it by, she calmly said, "You are quite in the right. It was most natural to pay your visit then." He was silent. She believed he was looking at her, probably reflecting on what she had said and trying to understand the manner. She heard him sigh. It was natural for him to feel that he had cause to sigh. He could not believe her to be encouraging him. A few awkward moments passed and he sat down again and in a more determined manner said, "It was something to feel that all the rest of my time might be given to Hartfield. My regard for Hartfield is most warm." So what has actually happened in this scene? Well, arguably nothing apart from that Emma has sat down. That's what's happened. Okay, that's the surface action to this scenario. But if we look at the highlighted words, they express emotions and they also express the engaged senses of someone not able to speak what she feels and or that he feels either. So this is stuff that isn't cerebral, that isn't socially acceptable at that time. And so the point here, what I've done here is a kind of cut-up poetry thing. And what this shows is this kind of unspoken emotion and what we kind of call gut feeling. The gut feeling is represented in blue. Frank Churchill wants to marry Emma, but she's basically not interested. All he manages to actually say is that he feels warm about her home, Hartfield, which I think is quite charming. And actually, I was thinking about this in relation to what you showed, Bella, the kind of what you had those sensory kind of wristbands, and what would be going on there? They'd be going crazy. But that warmth is key. That idea of warmth is key, and it's what we seek out when we are looking to connect with people in any given situation. The warmth or cold that emerges from the subtext, not the text. And all too often, though, we rely on explicit communications that are easily controlled and planned. Because we have Hootsuite, we have Campaign Monitor to help us. This is the way that we often communicate through our marketing, through our texts in that context. So much marketing activity is dominated by push tactics, shouting about how great your product is, how marvelous your campaign is, what success looks like, relentlessly telling the world who you are. But research shows that you're more likely to survive a plane crash than click on a banner ad. And we know from experience that the incessant clamour of social media bragging is tiresome at best. What's more important is your brand's behaviour and how other people talk about your brand and whether it comes across as warm, by which I mean approachable, appealing, authentic. Is your brand somewhere that people would like to live? Because, as we know, unconscious prejudices are far stronger than our kind of conscious expressed feelings. And unspoken feelings are more powerful than those that we are comfortable to openly express. If we apply this to writing and marketing our stories, it's kind of a relief. Emma is a story that, like Star Wars, has captured the imaginations of millions of people. And it doesn't depend on those kind of big war scenes and superhero scenarios. It's a quiet story where these subtexts are incredibly important and powerful. Campbell's story structure can be applied to Jane Austen's work and George Lucas's work alike. So to finish, I'd like to suggest that by better understanding the nuanced and numerous ways that we can connect with people, and by seeking out silences and subtexts, we'll communicate on a deeper level and create much richer content as a result. Thank you.